It's petition number 181 of 2023, and it is a petition filed in the public interest to challenge sections 28, 30, 33 Roman XX, 34A, 3, Roman 3, Roman 4, Roman 5, Roman 7 and Roman 8, 36, 52, 56, 59, 73, 74, 76, 78 and 79 of the finance bill, which according to me are unconstitutional to the extent that if they become law, they will violate the constitution. So I'm taking up this is a preemptory application whereby I'm asking the judges to stop the consideration of those sections since they are a threat to the constitution until the petition is heard and determined. So the power to enforce taxes is not absolute. It's a donated power by the people who donated to the executive, and they reposed it not in the executive but in parliament. That's why when you look at Article 209, it's clearly stated that taxation can only be done, and 210, taxation can only be done as provided by legislation. So basically, and the basis of that is, if you remember the Boston Tea Party, where people were singing that no taxation without representation. So the power to tax is reposed in parliament. So, and that power cannot be donated to any other organ. Right now, if you look at it, the power is being exercised by the executive. The way the executive is talking is like parliament does not matter. Instead of proposing and leaving it to parliament, they are saying it is going to pass, whether you like it or not. So first of all, that violates the constitutional order. The executive only requests parliament for taxes. It does not bulldoze. But as you know, we have got a parliament that is largely a lapdog organization, where the majority has gone into bed with the executive. It is not distinct from the executive. And so whatever the executive wants will always pass. So that constitutional protection that taxation will be asked by parliament is not available to the people of Kenya, because parliament has been compromised, and parliament is now just a small appendix of the executive. It has no identity away from the executive. So going forward, then you have to go back and look at the constitution, and you see that the constitution does not just leave it to parliament. Within the constitution, there are clear limitations that cannot be breached when doing taxation. And that's how the Bill of Rights comes into play. So if you want to do anything that touches on the Bill of Rights when you are taxing, then you must comply with Article 24, which sets the threshold for limiting rights. Now, when you look at this, what is going on, there are many things in that finance bill which are not proper. And among them, the popular housing bill, the housing levy, which even if you look at the fund, the housing fund, where they are saying that they're going to send that money to, the housing fund is not designed for those kind of things. It's very clear what the housing fund does. So when you are going to, you cannot force somebody to save. You cannot force somebody to join an association. And the parliament is forbidden from passing those kind of laws that are arbitrarily deny people their properties. Now you come down, you've got the issues of the taxation on insurance payments. You have got taxation on petroleum, which are going to basically render this country inoperable, because the cost of doing things, of doing business and even of living, are going to go through the roof. You have provisions that also curtail the right to access the courts. And even another that I mentioned, the courts, when you look at it, that housing levy is a blanket levy that is being imposed on everybody, even those people whom the constitution says you cannot touch their salary are not exempted, and those are the judges, commissioners of independent commissions, of constitutional commissions, and holders of independent offices. So how does that tax survive the constitutional bar that you cannot touch the salaries of these people? Because there's no distinction. When you look at an employee who is subject to that, it's not defined, because There are very many employees who are here. Maybe they are not citizens or citizens of this country, and they are here for a short while. What happens? Will you tax them? Will you exempt them? Also, if you look at the amount of money itself anyway, and that's what makes me think it's a Ponzi scheme. After 7 years, you'll have raised 5,000, assuming you contribute the maximum of 2.5, and the employer contributes the other maximum of 2.5, gives you 5,000 shillings per month. Multiply that per year, it comes to 60,000 shillings. When you multiply that by 7 years, it's 420,000 shillings. Which house will you buy for 420,000 shillings today? That is a Ponzi scheme. So there are very, very, very many irregularities that need to be challenged. Number two, you also find that the finance bill is trying to amend laws that were passed by both the Senate and the National Assembly. So, and yet you know that the finance bill does not go to the National Assembly, it will need to the Senate. So how will the National Assembly be able to amend rules or laws which are made by the two houses? Any amendment has to go to both houses. You look at something like housing. Housing is not supposed to be implemented by the national government. If you remember the case of the CDF case at the Supreme Court, there are very, very, very clear pronouncements made on shared functions, whereby the execution is by the counties. And then when you look at this, the counties have been given no role at all in the whole thing. So at the end of the day, you find that the finance bill is not properly conceived. You even find that I've put the amendments to the Statutory Instruments Act. Now, what does the Statutory Instruments Act have to do with the finance bill? The finance bill is supposed to be a money bill, and the money bill is defined as something that only deals with money matters. So when you begin bringing in amending other acts, and you can see that the purpose of that amendment is to allow government to make law, they need the executive to make law without the supervision of parliament. When you remove the, the sunsetting of the statutory instruments, or the repeal of statutory instruments after 10 years, you find that it leaves the government, the executive, with too much power where they can make a regulation and they don't have to take it to parliament. And you find that is not acceptable. It violates the constitution. So there are very, very, very many violations of the constitution, and that's why I've isolated those many clauses of the finance bill, which I feel should not even be debated in parliament. Because if they become law, they will violate the constitution. Before they become law, they threaten the constitution. And the parliament has an obligation not to do anything like that, so is the minister. So I filed my petition. Unfortunately, the registry is not sitting, it's not open today, so we'll wait and see on Monday.